Have you ever heard someone call your name, even when you were completely alone? What happened to Daniel one night made him question everything he thought he knew about reality. Daniel had just moved into a small apartment at the end of a long, quiet hallway. The building was old, the kind where the lights flickered constantly and the floorboards seemed to groan with every step. But it was the landlord's parting words on move-in day that really stuck with him. The old man leaned in, his voice low, and said, "Whatever you do, if you hear someone calling your name in the hallway at night, don't open your door." Daniel just laughed it off, thinking it was just a strange old man trying to spook the new guy. For the first week, everything was quiet, almost too quiet. Daniel settled in, unpacked his boxes, and got used to the building's peculiar noises. Then, one night, everything changed. He was jolted awake, his clock glowing a menacing 3:17 a.m. At first, he thought a dream had woken him. Then he heard it, a voice drifting from the hallway. It was soft, a faint whisper, barely there. Daniel, he sat bolt upright in bed, his heart starting to thump against his ribs. It had to be a neighbor, right? Maybe someone got the wrong apartment. Then the voice came again, a little closer this time, a little more insistent. Daniel opened the door, a knot of fear tightened in his stomach. How did they know his name? He hadn't met any of his neighbors yet. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, he crept out of bed. The floor was ice cold beneath his feet. He tiptoed to the door, his hand trembling as he reached for the peephole. He pressed his eye against the cool metal and peered out. The hallway was empty. The dim, flickering light cast long, dancing shadows, but there was no one there. Absolutely no one. He took a step back, a wave of unease washing over him. This was just weird. He decided to forget about it and go back to sleep. Just as he turned his back on the door, the whisper came again. This time, it was right on the other side of the wood, as if someone had their mouth pressed against the door. "Daniel, I know you're in there. I can hear you breathing." His breath hitched in his throat. His hands started to shake uncontrollably. Every rational thought told him to stay put, to hide, to call someone. But a morbid curiosity, a powerful, irrational urge started to take over. He found his hand reaching for the doorknob. Suddenly, the landlord's warning echoed in his mind, sharp and clear. "If you hear someone calling your name, don't open the door." Daniel froze, his fingers just inches from the cold brass. There was something deeply unsettling about the voice. It didn't sound human. It was hollow, raspy, like a recording trying to imitate a person's voice, but getting it all wrong. Slowly, carefully, he backed away from the door, his eyes wide with terror. He stood there in the dark, listening for what felt like an eternity. The whispering eventually faded, and the hallway fell silent once more. Daniel didn't sleep for the rest of the night. He just sat on his bed, watching the door until the sun came up. The next morning, exhausted and on edge, he found the landlord downstairs. He recounted the whole terrifying experience. The old man's face grew grim, his eyes filled with a seriousness that chilled Daniel to the bone. "You're lucky," the landlord said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're very lucky you didn't open that door." "Why? What would have happened?" Daniel asked, his voice shaking slightly. The landlord sighed, a long, weary sound. "The last tenant who lived in your apartment." He heard the same voice. A shiver traced its way down Daniel's spine. What happened to him? The landlord glanced down the long, empty hallway, then back at Daniel. "He opened the door," he said softly. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry, and then what? The old man looked away, his gaze distant. We never saw him again. He just vanished. That night, Daniel couldn't bring himself to even lie down. He sat on a chair, his back against the wall, his eyes glued to the front door, a baseball that clutched in his hands. He waited, and sure enough, as the clock ticked over to 3:17 a.m., he heard it. The whisper, Daniel, but this time his blood ran absolutely cold. The voice wasn't coming from the hallway, it was coming from inside his apartment.